Today we're back in the Old English Orosius, and I wanted to read the story of Alexander the Great. It starts after the death of Philip II, and right here we can just get right into it. After tham the Romaburg getimbred was, feur hunde wintrum on 620. Okay, so 426. Feur hunde wintrum on 620, fang Alexander to Macedonia riche, after Philippuse his vader, and his arrestantheinship on thonje kyrde, tha he alle krekas mit his snutro on his jewald nidde, alle tha the with hine juwin upahovon. Okay, so 426 years after Rome was built, Alexander fang to Macedonia riche. And if you've been watching these videos, you know that this is a really common way of saying took control of the kingdom, not necessarily by force. He just, he became king. After Philippuse, his father. After Philip, his father. And here again, we've got the Latin nominative form, Philippus, inflected into the dative just by adding that E to the end of it. Und his arrestantheinship on thon, jukizde tha, he alle krekas mit his snutro on his jewald nidde. So his first kind of action was mit his snutro, with his kind of cunningness, with his wisdom, to alle krekas, all of the Greeks, on his jewald nidde. Nidde here means like conquered, on his jewald, in his power. Aletha the with hine yuwin upahovon. All of those that yuwin upahovon with hine, that is basically held war against him. That was arrest from Persum, tha he saldon demosthanase tham pilosope legende feuch with tham the he yelarde alle krekas that he Alexandre with sogen. Okay, so it says it began with the Persians, who gave Demosthenes, who's a pretty, famous orator from Athens, and here it doesn't use the native Old English word for philosopher, which is udwita. It uses pilosop. Legende, he was lying. He was being false, lying. Feuch, they gave him money. With tham the he lärde alle krekas, that he Alexandre with soken, so that he would teach all of the Greeks to, with soken, that is kind of stand against, really more like abandon, but kind of like stand against here. And this is historically somewhat accurate. Not that the Persians paid him to do it, but Demosthenes was a big opponent of Philip and Alexander in Greece. Athene budon je feucht Alexandre, ac he sona for sloch on je flimde, that he sithan unje metlikne eie from him havdon. So the Athenians budon je feucht, that is, they declared war, they bade war Alexandre, against Alexander. Ac he sona for sloch, he quickly killed on je flimde, and put them to flight. He sona for sloch on je flimde, that he sithan unje metlikne eie from him havdon. That after that they had kind of unmeasurable fear from him. Unje metlikne eie. Und tebana fasten a brak, und mit alle towarp, that de was alra krega havodstol, on sithan that folk al on eltheode him with feu jesalde, und alle tha odre theoda, the an krecum warun, he to gavel yildum jedide, buton Macedonium, the him est to ychirdon. Okay, so Tebanafasten, that is the city of the Thebians, hey, abrak, he, literally this means to break, but he conquered. When you have a city and someone is said to have abrak it, that means that they conquered it. Und mit alle towarp, and he threw it all down. That was Alra Kreka Havodstol. That was the capital of all of the Greeks, Havodstol. On Sithan that folk al on el theodia him with feu gesalde. He then Sithan thereafter, all of that folk into foreign lands on Eltheodia with Feuch Yesalde. With Feu Yesalde. He gave them with money into foreign lands, that is, he sold them into slavery. Und alle tha odre theoda, the an crecum waren, heto gavoyildum judide, buton Macedonium, they him asked to yichirdon. So gavoyildum is a pretty common thing that we see in war in Old English. It's kind of like almost like a tribute, and we see it pretty often because the Vikings are constantly demanding it of the Angles, the English. And so here he demands that the Greeks give him gavoyilde, that is, they give him tribute. Buton Macedonium, except for the Macedonians, they him asked to yichirdon. And here this word, it keeps tripping me up. It's a pretty uncommon form, but it means first. It's an adverbial way of saying the first ones, to yichirdon, to come to him, which is an odd thing to say because he is their king. But he's saying that he's not subjecting the Macedonians to tribute. On thonon was farende an nilirice on thraki, onti alle to him yibide. Okay, so then after that, from there, basically, he went was farende on nilirice, and on thraki. So the kingdom of the Niles, I'm not really sure who that is, and then the Thraki, which are the Thracians. Let's see if it says in the Latin. Nilirice. In Latin, that's Illyricos. Now I've lost my spot. Okay, so this is Illyria, on Thraki, and in Thrace. So Thrace and Illyria. Onti alle tohim yabide, and he kind of brought them to him. On Sithan he yegadaro de fyr with Perse. On Thahwile he yegadaro de he of sloch alle his magas, or maybe here it just gets magas. The he yerachan mechte. So he gathered an army, he yegadaro de fyr with Perse, with the Persians, against the Persians, that is. On Thahwile he yegaderode, and while he was gathering it, Thahwile he yegaderode, he of sloch alle his magas, all of his kinsmen, he yerachan mechte, that he was able to get a hold of, reach, literally. He of sloch alle his magas, he yerachan mechte. On his fedeherre waren 32,000, und thas I horseran 50,500, und shippe anhund und achtati. Okay, fedeherre, that is the kind of the foot army, waren 23,000, so 23,000, 23,000, so 32,000. On thas I horseran 50,500. That, okay, this means 4,500. Literally, so it means the fifth half of 1,000, which in Old English meant 5 of something, except the last one is just a half, so 4.5. So 50,500 means 4,500. On shippe anhund on achtati, and 180 ships. Not each, quath Orosius, where mare wundur was, they that he swa lutle fultme thon a mast an dal thesis middanjar des jegan mechte, that they that he swa lutle werde swa michel on yinnan dorste. That is, Orosius says, I don't know whether mare wundur was. I don't know which was more of a wonder. Whether mare wundur was. That he swa lutle, that he swa mid lutle fultme thon a mast an dal thesis middanjar des jegan mechte, that he with so little help, the greatest part of this world, thesis middanjar des jegan mechte, was to go against. They that he swa mid swa lydle were swa Mitchell on dorste, or that he, with such a small army, dared to begin. On tham erste I feochte, the Alexander I facht with Darius on Persum, Darius have the 600,000 focus. That is, on the first battle that Alexander fought with Darius in Persia, Darius had 600,000 people. On tham erste I feochte, the Alexander I facht with Darius on Persum, Darius have the 600,000 focus. He war thach swidor beswiken for Alexander's sarwe, thonne for his jefeochte. He was then beswiken, that is kind of like tricked, but more so kind of here overcome. Swidor for Alexander's sarwe, thonne for his jefeochte. Alexander's sarwe, that is his kind of cunning, his craftiness, thonne for his jefeochte, then for his battle here, maybe more like for the strength of his army. So this is the first fight between Alexander and Darius. If I'm not mistaken, in reality, this happened on a river, and the kind of way that the Macedonians won the battle was they advanced towards the river and then made to cross it, and then the Persians all did cross the river, and then the Macedonians halted and then actually didn't cross the river. And then when the Persians were crossing the river, the Macedonians kind of attacked them while they were in a disarray. Don't fact check me on that. I think that that's what actually happened in this battle. But at least according to the Old English, which is, probably somewhat accurate, Alexander won the battle because of the strength of his mind rather than the strength of his army. There was ungemetlich wel slagen Persa. Und Alexandres nas na ma thon de 112 on tham radeherre, and nichon on tham fedan. Okay, so there was ungemetlich wel slagen Persa. So an unmeasurable slaughter of the Persians. Und Alexandres nas na ma thon de 112. 112 is 120. That is kind of like 12D. On tham radeherre, in his army. In the army of cavalry, that is the radeherre. Und nichon on tham fedan, and 9 people in the foot army. Tha for Alexander thonon on Frigam, Asiamland, and Heuraburg brak on Toarp Themon hat Sardis. So then Alexander goes into Phrygia, the land of Asia, and he conquers their city and throws it down. Themon hat Sardis, that is called Sardis. Tha side him mon that Darius have the F4 Yegarrod on Persum. Then someone told him that Darius again had an army gathered in Persia. Tha side him on that Darius have the F4 Yegarrod on Persum. Alexander him that tha on drad, for thar narwan stoe, the he tha on was, on radliche for tham ea thon a 4 over Taursan, thon a berg, and unje livet likne michelne way on tham dia je for, oth he kom to tharsum thara buri, on kilicum tham land. Okay. So Alexander then that ondrad, he was then afraid of that. For that narwan stoe the tha on was, for the kind of narrow, that is confined place that he was then in. That is, maybe he was afraid that the Persians were going to trap him there. On Hradliche fortham ea, and quickly because of that fear, Hradliche fortham ea thonen a 4 over Taurzan thon a berg, and unje livet likne michelne way on tham dia je for. So he went he went over Tarzan thon the mountain, that is Taurus, or maybe Tarum, I think is the Latin word, the mountain, and with an unbelievable great way, that is kind of very quickly, he took a really great journey. Unje livet likne michelne way on tham dia je for, he took on that day. Oth he kom to tarsum tharrebiri on Kilicium thamlonde. Okay, until he came to Tharsis, the city, in the land of Kilikia, I think it's, or maybe in English, Cilicia. Right? Yeah. On Thamdaya, he mette ana a, seo have de unjemetliche child water, seo as kievnus hatten. So that day he found a river, and it had unjemetliche child water. It had unbelievably cold water, unmeasurably cold water. Seo as kievnus hatten. It was called kidness. Tha ongon he hine balian tharun swa swatine. Tha fortham chile him yshrunkon alle tha adra, that him mon thas leves newende. So then he began to bathe, tharon, in there. Swa swatine, he was so sweaty that he began to bathe. Tha fortham chile him yshrunkon alle tha adra. For that chill, all of his veins began to shrink. Him yshrunkon alle tha adra, that him mon thas leves newende, that people were afraid of his life, for his life. Okay, don't have a ton of time today. I'm going to make a pause there for the day. Our next session will talk about the next battle between Darius and Alexander. I'm going to look up the details of the battle I just kind of haphazardly narrated earlier and put them in the description just in case I mess something up. Other than that, don't have anything else to say. Until next time, Farathie Sunde.